Hello and welcome to the Engineer Your Leadership, Life Harmony, and Success Like a Mother show. I'm your host, Kenya Romanovska, award-winning investigative journalist turned maternity leave and working motherhood strategist. And I am recording this show as my newest child is about a month and a half old. I tried to come back live to you last week, but I realized I didn't put the volume on. So I'm giving this another go this week as she's hanging out with her grandma and having a lovely time. Temperatures are rising here in Edmonton where I live. So it's been a lovely day for a walk. There's some sunshine. I'm getting some sunshine on my face. But anyway, what do we do here at Pros and Babes? If you're new to this space, we help you turn the motherhood penalty into your greatest advantage. And the motherhood penalty, what is it? I mean, there's many ways to define it. It's defined in academia and media, but generally speaking, it's the disadvantages that you face when you become a mother in your career and finances. And I've expanded this definition to say how it actually affects your mindset and your whole quality of life. And it starts off when you start having two jobs of being a mom and a career, but you don't double your time. And then, many women report feeling anxiety, having a never-ending to-do list, feeling like their mood is affected because they don't sleep very well. Their life with their spouse and their quality of life and their quality of their relationship with their spouse is impacted. There's a lot of self-doubt about being a good mom and a good professional, right? So what we do in this space is we create a community and we have a structure and lots of good questions and resources to help you transform this motherhood penalty into a great advantage. And that starts with knowing what you want and really who you are as a working mom. And so we really dive deeply into all of those concepts. And today I wanted to talk about the tools that my advanced students are using right now. So I have to say that I'm extremely blessed to develop long-term working relationships with the moms that participate in the Mom BA. One of the first cohorts kicked off during the pandemic. And I think that time together defined us and how we wanted to parent and grow as professionals. And many of them have decided to continue working in some capacity in the Mom BA program. Maybe some of you have seen posts of us coming together in Edmonton. I have clients all around Canada and the United States and even other countries, but many of us here are in Edmonton. And so we come together to continue the work. And these moms have, 3, 4, some 5 years of experience of building an intentional life as a mother. And we spend a fair amount of time reflecting how we want to use our most non-renewable resource, which is time, right? We all have 24 hours a day split between sleep and work and family life and other activities. And most of us as working moms, we feel like there's just never enough of it in a day. And it's not a nice feeling. So in our most advanced classes, we use something called the 3-year arc. I'll talk about it in just a second. I guess if you're starting out in this space, you may not be fully familiar with the tools we use, but when we start our work together, one of the first things we do is we design your long game, right? Like most of us have some sort of long-term career plan, maybe not in great detail, but maybe you have a financial or retirement plan. It's kind of like this endpoint. I'm going to retire at 65 and live my best life when I don't have to work for a salary anymore, right? Well, what happens when you have kids? Like, should you have a framework? What is your end goal as a parent? And I often ask parents to imagine the day where their kids graduate from their home life, when they become independent and have spent their time growing up with you, watching you as a working mom. How would they, if they were giving a graduation speech on a stage at maybe 25, for example, and saying, hey, this is what I observed. This is what I took out of my life with my parents, growing up with a mom who had a career, right? And this is what I learned from her. And now I feel ready to get into life and start my own life as an adult and have my own family and have my career. And I watched my mom with a career, and this is what I learned from her. And this is the memories we've built together. And typically that's a pretty emotional question for people to explore because when you're holding a tiny little baby, or even if your child's a toddler, or even in school, you kind of think like, holy moly, one day they won't be so young and relying on me, right? Well, will you have taught them the skills and the self-confidence and the self-esteem and kind of the concepts of what it means to be a successful human as they observe you being a working mom? I think most of us, as we juggle career and family life, we just wonder, am I doing the right thing? Like in principle, most of us want to work and have a career, but the whole juggling act of managing both can make us feel very stressed and anxious about whether we're actually making the right decision and whether we're spending the right time with our kids and whether we are teaching them the right things, right? So why not apply some principles from career planning, from management consulting? Be strategic about it. What does it mean to actually be a successful parent? And if there's a graduation point for them, what would that look like? Right? So that's one of the starting points. Another, when we define that in every area of life, like what does health look like? What does successful marriage look like? What does successful career and finances, all of that? We like to take like a big picture, long-term strategic game, and then we reverse engineer from there and break it down into seasons. So we break it down into 5-year seasons. Every 5-year season has a specific quality to it. I like a lot to talk about the golden years. My husband, who comes from a large family, says, Kenya, the golden years are when we're going to be able to do like all of these mountain trips and the camping with our kids, and they're going to be big enough to climb mountains and canoe and all of that, right? So this is a season that we have mapped out in this kind of chart and that we look forward to. We want to make sure that we build up to that too with our own health and physical activity, right? And the season we're in right now, we just had a third baby. I call them the young fertile family years. And I know that that's a season. Just before my daughter was born, my boys were getting a little bit older, 6 and 4. We kind of felt like we were out of survival mode for some time. We're able to enjoy a lot of activities with them, but this is a season. And so it means that it in some regards, it constrains and offers opportunity and possibility, right? So we like to look at that 25-year arc and 5-year seasons and what's really important for you in each one of those seasons. Then what we typically did, we drilled down to a 1-year plan. So the MomBA program that I run has typically a 1-year arc. And in each month, we look at a specific pillar, such as mindset, relationships with your partner, health, career, life, harmony, or integration, however you want to call it, finances, personal branding, leadership skills, career skills and career planning, right? Support systems, time management, all of that. So we look at one pillar per month and we actually define what is really important to you, right? So we spend a year and we measure the pillars that have the most impact on your life and we make progress in them through community, conversation, journaling exercises, expert calls. So it's natural to follow this 1-year arc. I think even as I'm recording this in January, many of us do some yearly planning and we like to set goals around that yearly timeframe, right? I still like to do that. And if you were just getting started in this space, one of my favorite ones is called the Year Compass. I think it's not too late to do it as we have this conversation. The Year Compass is one of the original tools I started using a few years ago to review my past year and to plan my future year in buckets and pillars. And when I developed the MomBA program, I reflected on kind of the pillars I really wanted to address. In some capacity would have been inspired by the Year Compass, right? So we always look at the year along these 12 pillars and the ones that will have the biggest impact on your life and that you should focus on. And then we drill down to more productivity tools. So a few of us have been using this year for a while. We go on a lovely retreat to the mountains where there's a spa and hot, well, it's not hot springs, sorry. There's hot tubs and there's saunas and there's cold plunges that I love to do. And we spend a few nights there as a group of career moms. And we do this Year Compass exercise. So we review our past year. We have this nice fire ceremony where we kind of try to burn and release things that we want to leave behind in the past year. And then we look forward into the next year, right? And what we want to create. And so as I've been doing this Year Compass exercise for many years now, there's always some goals that I don't achieve. And if you're like me and you like checking things off your list, I would always feel kind of disappointed in myself. Instead of celebrating everything that I had moved forward, I would notice this one goal and I'd be like, I still didn't achieve it this year. And specifically, it happened for my business. For my business, it took me a couple of years to feel solid enough to quit my full-time corporate job and focus on Pros and Babes full-time. And I would see that like 1 year, I didn't quit my job this year. And the next year, I didn't quit my job this year. And finally, I took that leap and I did. And it made me think about goal setting in a completely different way because I had this long-term vision. I had these 1-year goals, but it just felt very hiccupy. And I realized that some goals and bigger goals and really big transformations and legacy goals take longer to achieve. And I noticed that was after 3 years of working with the Women in the Mom Bee program, because many women register to work with us for more than 1 year. The first year was kind of about this, raising this awareness and going through this whole process of defining who you want to be as a working mom in every single pillar. Like, that's pretty big work to do when you realize that your previous identities, who you were pre-kids, is not the same. And it's such an opportunity to redefine what really matters in life, right? So that's a fair amount of work and reflection. And the first year, many women come in and join the calls, fill out some of the workbooks, get into the mood, and they're like, well, I want to continue this journey, right? So we would spend a second year together going deeper and starting to reflect more on our feminine energy. Working together, we realized, like, hey, a lot of a working mom life is about fitting into a masculine world, a masculine definition of productivity that doesn't necessarily allow us to honor our cycles, right? Like, when we go through a menstrual cycle and we have our period, many of us feel in a more introspective period, and we can't necessarily honor that in the corporate world, right? So we started having discussions about that and realizing that there's like a different cyclicality to being a woman, to being a mother. And in the second year of work together, we would explore that. And then people still wanted to continue working together. So we dove deeper into things that tied all together. And a lot of that was spiritual concepts and faith and discussing life and death. I hope it's not overwhelming for you listening to this, but the point of all of that is that there's arcs, right? And I noticed just like this natural 3-year arc to how we work together. Year 1 was this awareness, year 2 was going deeper, and year 3 was fully integrating things. And I'm like, wow, well, you know what? That actually makes me think about how much I've been able to evolve and accomplish within a 3-year period. And what if I approached my life from this 3-year arc, right? Where there's some planning, execution, deepening. And I think if we look at time this way, it helped me breathe a little bit more. I was always trying to cram in so much into a year. Like, there are 12 pillars in my life, and actually even more. I mean, there are more than 12 pillars, and I can't possibly make huge progress on every single one of them every year. So giving myself this 3-year arc to look at my life, to plan, to dive deeper, to reflect, is something that we're doing with different benchmarks in the community. We're analyzing what have we actually done and grown in the last 3 years. Where are we now? And then what is the good, better, best stretch, right? And that gives you different levels of growth in every single pillar of life. And the group is loving it. Like, it's such a great exercise. So the point of this podcast is to help you think about your relationship with time and how you use your different productivity and goal setting tools, and whether they actually support you as a mother and as a working woman. This 3-year arc is an example of how we are adapting the traditional measurement tools for the success of life to fit it better in our life as a mother. And I'm hearing in the background that my little girl really, really wants me at this point. I think she was hanging out with grandma, but it's time to wrap up our session for today. Let me know if this podcast episode was useful to you. Let me know what you use for goal setting and whether you've used the year podcast, the year compass tool at all. And I would love to have a conversation with you of how that's going, how it's supporting you, what you feel you're missing, what's missing in your life as a working mom in terms of community, in terms of planning, in terms of time and energy management. We are here to support you and to celebrate you and to help you get where you want to get as a mom with great goals. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Engineer Your Success, Leadership, and Life Harmony Like a Mother show. I'm your host, Kenya Romanovska, mom of 3, and so excited to support you here on your journey as a working mom.